Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that's never made a promise to a dinosaur, but if we did, we'd definitely keep it. It's Sif Pop. Welcome to Sif Pop Weekly, streaming live most Saturday mornings, or available to download later in your podcast feed, unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks!
Patrons get those perks.
Roar.
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and I thought he was the biggest carnivore the world had ever seen. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm not that fat. Ahoy!
It's not what that means. It just means you're a meat eater. That's all it means.
I really am.
Each week, we'll chat about movies, TV, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. And please welcome our guest this week. He's tired of hunting jackals. He's ready to hunt the lion. It's Jonathan Paula, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey,
Woo!
hello. How are you? Good to be back. Really excited for today's pair of films. I have some strong opinions, and I can't wait to discuss.
Opinions will be opined.
Right.
We are today talking about Jurassic World Dominion and RRR. On Netflix.
That I feel like that title is deliberately just a practical joke on anyone from Boston, because whenever I say it's going to be it's just going to sound like, are you choking? You have something caught in this is my throat. It's just
yeah. My wife's first comment when I loaded it up on Netflix was, "Oh, is this a pirate movie?" Yes.
It is not a pirate
No,
movie.
it is not a pirate movie. Not at least in the literal specific sense. So yeah, we are going to look at those two movies as well as do a best ever challenge on Goldblum, Jeff Goldblum movies, who has had
the
a
best Goldblums.
Prolific career of stammering his way through movies. And then we'll do some buried treasure at the end as well. But let's kick it off with our first movie this week. Let's take a look at Jurassic World Dominion. 4 years after Isla Nublar was destroyed, dinosaurs now live and hunt alongside humans all over the world. This fragile balance will reshape the future and determine once and for all whether human beings are to remain the apex predators on a planet they now share with history's most fearsome creatures. Jurassic World is the sixth movie in the Jurassic franchise, and it brings back many of the Jurassic World people you know and love, as well as many of the Jurassic Park people you know and love. Sam Neill coming back as Alan Grant, Laura Dern coming back as Ellie Sattler, Goldblum back again as Ian Malcolm. He has been in Jurassic World movie before. And then, of course, you've got Bryce Dallas Howard as Claire, Chris Pratt as Owen, and Isabella Sermon as Maisie Lockwood, the human clone that we found out about in the last movie. So yeah, dinosaurs roam the earth once again. What did you guys think about Jurassic World Dominion? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? John, start us off.
It was just okay.
Okay. Andrew.
I'm going to go with the very lowest possible side of okay that I can.
Oh, like just stretching the limits of just okay. Like I'm just not quite willing to say I didn't like it, but just stretching those limits. I'm right there with you guys. This is there's so much mediocre. This is a prototypical perfect Jurassic Park sequel in that it's just like all the others. There are moments I'm like, that's cool, and there are moments I'm like, this movie is dumb.
Yes.
So yeah, this is a lot like the others. But I had a decent enough time at certain parts that I do feel fine just going straight down the middle, just okay.
There's definitely a lot of this I genuinely enjoyed, and it was great to see the original trio back. But in a single word, this movie is convoluted. It's just a mess. The script is a disaster. Like, there are so many moving parts. There are parts of this, especially towards the end, where you can like figuratively hear the logistical machinery lumbering to kind of like we need to get 8 separate protagonists in the same place at the same time. So this guy needs to be here, and this guy, and also the 4 different antagonists all has to kind of be lined up. And it's just, there's so much like domino stacking. It feels almost like a chore, but when they start coming down at the end, it's like, okay, this is really, really fun.
No, you're absolutely right. You can feel the sweat on this movie, right? Like you can, like the effort on it is just throughout it. and a lot of that effort is understandable. But the problem when you're making a movie starting with like the dominoes, like you mentioned, that you have to place,
Yeah.
then you're really just making a movie where you're trying to problem solve your way from point A to point B, and you can just feel the effort to try to get there, and it doesn't all quite work. The other place you feel the sweat on this movie, and I guess I'm kind of starting with negatives here, but the other place you feel the sweat on this movie is the references. This feels like this movie wants to force in every reference, and every reference feels forced. Like when there's a moment where Ellie Sattler takes her glasses off, and in a different context than the first, and it's so clear they were like, okay, match it up exactly how you did it.
Her character introduction, she steps out of a Jeep, and I swear to God, she's wearing the exact same shirt.
Yeah,
she has it tied around her waist the exact same. Like, you haven't gotten a new wardrobe in 29 years.
Right, you haven't changed as a person. You haven't, your idea of what style is for you hasn't changed. Like, it makes this assumption that it's going to really like ring our nostalgia bells, and instead, what it does is I just roll my eyes. I'm just like, I didn't need that. That doesn't make the story any better or do anything for me. And so it does all that stuff very, very poorly.
Yeah, if convoluted is the first word, the second word I would use to describe it is inorganic, because nothing happens authentically. Nothing happens out of the script. It happens because it needs to get the next scene going.
Right.
And it all feels like it's just an expositional chain that doesn't have any real heart or message or point. It's just cogs in a machine to sell. Like, Andrew, hey, you guys remember this? You remember this? You remember this? You remember this guy? You remember this guy? You remember this guy?
Yeah,
That's the movie for 2 hours and 26 minutes. And some of it works, but
Andrew, you liked it less than either of us. So get us out of this negative part and tell us about the positives of this movie.
You know what? I was actually going to say, like, why is it falling on me to, jump? But I do have the biggest pro, I think, for this out of every single Jurassic Park movie there's ever been. The effects in this one are above and beyond anything we've ever seen. Like, I think some of this, like the mixture of practical effects with CGI, the detail that we're seeing now, it's
pretty impressive.
Mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing.
I did read that Colin Trevorrow, the director, utilized something like 19 or 20 animatronics for this. So it's not the dinosaurs are in many places actually real. Which I think is the first time they've used animatronics since the 97. The first.
Yeah, I don't think they. No, they did use it in Jurassic Lost World.
Yeah, as I'm saying, I think it's the first time they've used animatronics, at least in this sequel trilogy, since the 90s, which is great because I think it shows. There's definitely some close-ups and some more detailed shots of the dinosaurs. Like, oh no, that's legit. That's not a computer-generated shadow. That's a real shadow when you're really next to it.
There are some like sequences. Like here's why there's like two things that are keeping me from saying I hated this movie. And it's the simple fact that there are a couple sequences that were really cool, and I'm glad that I sat down and I saw it. Like that's what's keeping me from saying like everything else is like I couldn't stand like chemistry, like old guard meeting new guard was so awkward and forced that it didn't work at all.
Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Alan Grant and Claire even share a single line of dialogue, and they are the respective leads of their respective franchises. And I don't think.
That's interesting.
I don't think they do.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
They don't even when we finally get that big team up moment. They don't even like say hello to each other. It's just like, let's keep running. And that's it. They just have to like slalom between T-Rex legs for the remainder of the movie. Yeah. They never really get a moment to swap stories or just tell each other or just have that moment where us as fans can appreciate like them interacting. They kind of pair off. So we get a little bit of that, but it didn't, to me, feel meaningful or even necessary that they were, why were they together? Because they just are. It wasn't like a good point for it, you know?
Speaking of why, there is a character in this movie. I'll just call her the pilot. Yeah. Every single time she was on screen or she said something, the only thing that kept popping into my head is, "Who are you?"
Yeah, no, it's just And the other one, there were two new additions to the cast.
Yeah.
That felt like pretty obvious corporate diversity hires. Like, we need to get more people in this that aren't just old white men. So let's bring these. And I actually liked the new characters, but they were so underdeveloped.
I did
It was
too.
kind of like, why are you two helping? We don't know anything about you. You're just okay. You're just the new guy, and you're helping. All right.
The guy who was helping Ian Malcolm, I got him.
Ramsey.
I got him. I thought he was cool.
Yeah, no, I think both characters are great. I wanted more with them. And I think we spent too much time juggling old plot and new group, that when we have the new group, they don't have any time left to be developed.
Yeah. Is this the first Jurassic Park movie that is painstakingly trying to focus on everything except dinosaurs?
It felt like that. It really did. Like, the dinosaurs are just, and Aaron, you read the plot at the beginning of this about the cohabitation. Earth has dinosaurs and humans living together. That's not the movie we get. No. They shelved that after the first 4 minutes.
Conceptually, they show us a few shots.
And that was cool. I love.
And then they're like, "Nope, we're gonna do the park thing again."
Yeah, like within 5 minutes, it's all the dinosaurs in the wild have already been rounded up. That happened off screen, and now they're back in a closed off sanctuary away from everyone else. So it's a park. Cool, great. We've done that. They just immediately yanked away the premise and the promise of the last movie. Fallen Kingdom ends with this really evocative shot of a raptor overlooking, I think, Burbank or Southern California in any effect. And it's like, whoa, what would that be like if a raptor was loose in SoCal? Well, too bad. You don't get to see that because he's not there.
Here's what I don't get. Fallen Kingdom ended with 15 dinosaurs getting out of that silo. How do they take over the world?
I don't. In 4 years, I don't know.
Life finds a way. Life finds a way, guys.
Life finds a way.
No, I'm totally with you. How are they all over the world? How are there herds of them at this point? Yeah, it's
and weren't they all still microchipped? How did they get much further away?
Listen,
they should have been rounded up in a week.
This franchise threw logic to the wind a long time ago.
Yeah. They play really fast and loose with anything that would curb our enthusiasm. Like, anything that could make the movie more fun happens, regardless of whether or not it's realistic.
Correct. Yeah, that's what they're doing. On the good side of things, I actually did enjoy seeing the old cast. I'm not saying like they were great, like you mentioned with the new cast. But together they were great. On their own, I actually really enjoyed their dynamic. It reminded me, this movie understood what I liked about their dynamic in the first movie. Like, it understood that thing where, Alan Grant is both weirded out and also strangely a little jealous of Ian Malcolm. There's
totally. And I love that angle.
Is great.
Continuing that thread from 20, because they haven't shared a movie together. So they've been back and forth. This is both, actually, the original cast, this is their third movie for each of them, if you exclude Jeff's very minor bookend cameo in Fallen Kingdom. So, but this is the first one they've done together on screen, at least Jeff and Sam, since 1993. And I think continuing that little playful rivalry was great. And I think all the stuff with Ellie and Alan was fantastic, kind of watching them rekindle their relationship. That felt genuine and authentic. And that could have been the whole movie, just them without Owen or Claire or any of the new cast. Like, just a straight legacy sequel without any of the new stuff. That would have been a fine film.
So let's talk about legacy sequels for a second, because we've had a very, very recent example of one done very, very well with Top Gun, right? And so I think it behooves us to do a little comparison, why does Top Gun work so well and this works so poorly? And I think we've talked about some of those things. But just in your mind, what makes Top Gun better than this?
KISS. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yep.
I think that is a huge one. Yeah.
I was going to say the plot. That Top Gun has a very clear, straight line beginning to end. Here's what needs to happen. Here's what's going to happen. Here it happens. And it works because you can follow. This script is, if you had to actually describe the plot and not what the IMDb synopsis wants us to believe it is, it'll take you 5 minutes. There's just it's part like conspiracy thriller and it like an espionage caper, and they go to Malta and then they go to Italy, and then there's stuff in this, and there's kidnappings and clones and genetics and locusts and plagues. It's a complete mess of a story.
Way too much going on.
And I think the other thing, so the first thing would be, keep it simple, stupid. And then have the interaction and the pairing of the old and new actually mean something. Watching Maverick interact with Goose's son meant something because we had a relationship and an understanding of what that would be. There is no point for Alan and Owen to have a conversation like, hey, you're the guy that does this all the time with your hand. Hey, I'm the guy that wears a hat. They have nothing in common besides the fact they both fought raptors once, and they don't even talk about both fighting raptors.
Yeah. We talked about this whenever Fallen Kingdom came out, that we thought what would have been an amazing way to use these characters to bring the old guard and the new guard together is not have them work together, but to have them on opposing viewpoints of what to do with dinosaurs.
Yes.
Like have Owen and I forget Bryce Dallas Howard's character's name. Claire, thank you. So have Owen and Claire like be not environmentalists, but like a protective, to try and build a sanctuary for these dinosaurs. And then you have the old guard, which is, Ellie, Grant, and Ian. We've seen the detriment that these animals can do.
Well, Ian says as much in Fallen Kingdom. He's like, we should just let him die. Let the volcano explode. Let them all die. Yeah. And that would have been compelling because they would have had a natural and authentic reason to come together or come apart, interact in a way that was authentic to their character traits and in a way that services the story rather than just, oops, I guess you guys are both in the same hole at the same time, so let's climb out together. That's not a compelling reason for a team-up movie, but it is it's the best they could come up with, I guess.
Some of the best humor beats play on that. They just don't ever focus on that. Like when Goldblum says something, or Malcolm says something like, you made a promise to a dinosaur, or that kind of thing. Like that plays on that idea of old school, new school kind of, how they see it. But
similarly, there's a line right after that where he's like, "So you trained raptors, huh?" Mm-hmm. And then Chris Pratt's like, "Yeah, well, through understanding human interaction and behavior." And he's like, "I couldn't even get my dog to not crap on the sofa." There were a couple moments like that I really liked, but that was it. There was like a couple, and it should have been. We should have gotten 20, 30 minutes of that. This isn't a complicated idea. People want to see our heroes have fun together and solve problems, or go head to head in a way that is interesting and dynamic. And we got none of that.
Yeah. If this movie can hang its hat on one, I guess even scene, really, it's the chase scene in Malta.
That was great.
I thought that was
the motorcycles and the raptors. That was awesome. It felt like it was Jason Bourne or Bond.
Yeah,
but it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was conceptually interesting. I did enjoy it. The action is not shot all that well. This is another difference between Top Gun and this movie, is the action is shot in a confusing way in this movie. There are moments where Pratt is running. I'm like, where are you geographic? I have no idea where you are geographically related to everything else right now. Again, coming off of Top Gun, where it's like, I know where every piece is, exactly what it's doing and what I want it to do. You know what I mean? And it's just
it's a really good analogy is like, picture trying to watch basketball shot exclusively at floor level close-ups. You can't follow the action if you can't see it.
Right.
And it's everybody has a GoPro head mount in the NBA.
I can't tell. Is Steph Curry open right now, or is he on the bench? I can't tell. And I think so much of modern action suffers from just shoot it wide, keep it chronologically moving, but geographically left to right. Yeah, right. And I think one of the cardinal sins of any chase sequence is switching direction, and that happens a couple times.
It does happen.
And so he takes off on his bike and he's screen left, traveling screen right, and then it cuts and he's going the other way. I'm like, what are you doing? Stay on one side of the 180.
And yes, we understand intellectually that if you look from opposite ends, it's going to look like he's going different ways. But that doesn't change the fact that subconsciously we're trying to follow something happening. And in real life, you know what we don't do? Immediately change our perspective to the other side. I can't immediately see it from the other direction. And so that jostles my brain in a weird way. So yes, that scene is fun and conceptually I really like it. The scene that I liked even better was I'm just going to call it the ice skating scene.
Yeah, that was great too.
I thought that was really fun, and I didn't feel as confused during that one. The players seemed clear. I knew where everybody was. I knew what was going on. I knew what the objective was.
Long wide
we did have some wide shots.
Like, here's a good wide shot. We know where everybody is. Stay there for a minute.
Yeah.
That was great. I also, there's a sequence where Bryce has to dive underwater. I think this is actually in the trailer even. She has to dive underwater to stay hidden from this bird-like dino that we meet in this one. I don't even know if he gets a name.
Finally, the dinosaurs have feathers.
Finally, they have feathers. They finally retconned their own scientific inaccuracies. In universe, they kind of explain it away as like, when we did this in 92, we didn't know what science didn't know, that they kind of had feathers. So the dinosaurs they make now in universe have feathers because we know that they did, which is kind of fun.
The feathers just weren't a part of their original DNA somehow, like this.
Well, I think it's kind of like what John says. By the way, it's a Therizinosaurus is the name with the giant claws.
Okay. Very good zoom tight.
Here's one thing. I wanted to be a paleontologist when I was a kid.
Nice.
So I know every single dinosaur that was ever on screen in this movie. So
it
was fun seeing Gigantanosaurus or
And that's a real creature, right? The Gigantus, whatever.
Yeah, which is weird because he's not the largest land one. The Spinosaurus is.
I took issue with them calling him the largest one. He looked appreciably the same size as T-Rex.
Yeah.
In every shot, he'd be like, is he just like an inch or two, like 5% bigger? Like, I guess.
Yeah. He's got more scales and mean looking, so he's worse.
I want to talk about some other forced callbacks, some other interesting things. This callback, this is actually the least forced callback in my opinion because it means something to the story, and I find it interesting. The fact that our villain is Dodgson, which is, I know his name famously from the Dodgson. We got Dodgson here. See, no one cares. Well, now everybody cares. I
think you mean Tim Cook.
Evil Tim Cook.
Yes.
Exactly. I thought Campbell Scott did phenomenal job.
I did too.
With what was probably written pretty thinly, but all of his like stammering and like awkward avoidance of eye contact, like, oh, this guy, he has that weird like billionaire trait where like
that same Silicon way, Valley awkwardness.
Like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, they're all like a little weirder than most normal people. There's something, they don't live in our reality. They fly on helicopters all day. And I thought he nailed that like really aloof, uncaring kind of behavior. And like, oh yeah, no, this guy would definitely throw an entire, farm crop under the table if it meant he'd make an extra $1, for sure. So is the illusion there that he is the same guy?
Oh yes.
Oh yeah, that's Dodson.
Yeah, that's Dodson from the original movie, and he's worked his way up to the CEO of Biosyn. Is that the name of the company? Which also is in the original book.
Is it was Biosyn in the original movie, or was he just? I think he's just a competitor. That
I don't remember.
It was an unnamed competitor, but it was Biosyn pretty much.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see that play out. And by the way, the actor who played the original Dodson is in like in jail. I think like real legal trouble or whatever. So they obviously went a different direction.
Yeah, see, I didn't pick up on that immediately because I'm like, it's not the same actor. I'm like, is he like a brother or a father? Like, I didn't pick up that it's supposed to be the same guy.
I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. But immediately I was like, oh, I know the name, but like he's not. He doesn't look like him at all. So I guess he's just related. I didn't get it.
Yeah.
But then there's a close-up shot of an item later. I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it.
Close-up shot of an item, which we're all supposed to go, ooh, I know that item.
How'd they get that?
And then there's
I don't know.
Wasn't it buried in mud?
It's all scorched now, so yeah, who knows what happened. But maybe there were several of them, right? Like, it wasn't just the one. They were trying to do this several times. I have no idea. Anyways, they also basically shot for shot have I'm trying not to spoil anything about the Dodgson character. You can imagine what happens to villains usually at the end of movies like this, but shot for shot the same as Nedry's in the first movie. And it's just stuff like that. I just go,
I think one, it wasn't satisfying because we had seen it before.
Yes.
And two, it's not satisfying because nobody witnesses it.
Right.
And three, he does not have any
Any
interaction
context.
with any of our heroes except for a friendly and awkward introduction at the beginning of the film. So, like, as far as they know, he's not even necessarily the bad guy or was even complicit. He's just a guy that runs the company.
Well, Ian knew. Ian was.
I think Ian figured out, but Ian doesn't.
Ramsey is the one that I think we're supposed to believe. I guess this is kind of spoilery, but Ramsey's the one I think we're supposed to believe is passing the information along to everybody, right? Yeah.
But it's the kind of thing where the best Bond movies are where he has a tight relationship with a villain, and the worst ones are where he meets the villain at the end and kills him, and it's over. It's like, well,
I'm sorry, that was pretty spoilery. I apologize for throwing that plot point out there, but yeah,
I honestly, this movie's a mess. No one's going to remember. I guess my
there's
point
a bad
is
human.
He's a bad character, but he's not a good villain, if that makes sense, because he's not established. He doesn't have any relationship with our heroes. He's not ever standing in their way directly. He just kind of pulls some strings and then leaves, and it wasn't satisfying at all. His exit.
Well, here's what makes a great villain is, whenever they're in a position like this character, you have to have them believe whatever they're doing is good.
Right.
Like whenever you have a tech billionaire like this, if you just have a tech billionaire who is painfully evil because you need a villain, they're not good. They have to think, like, there has to be. I hate coming back to Thanos all the time, but Thanos thought he was helping, so there has to be something within evil Tim Cook to where he's like, yes, this is happening, but it's for this greater good of blah 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 blah. And in his mind, his actions outweigh whatever is going to be going on, but that just doesn't happen here. He's just like, he's apparently this brilliant mind, but something so painfully obvious is like, yeah, that's bad, you should probably stop doing it. He's like, no.
I think for that reason, I thought B.D. Wong's character, who now in his fourth movie, was way more compelling as a character, because he's someone who he's the reason everything has gone to crap in this universe. He's the one that keeps creating new dinosaurs and new plagues. But he finally, at the beginning of this movie, he's like, maybe I shouldn't do this. If he was the big bad, that would have been a compelling film.
Mm-hmm.
So,
because on the other thing too is our characters actually have a relationship with him. He worked directly for Bryce Dallas Howard, and he interacted with the original trilogy in the original film. He would have been a great character as the villain that has to either change his mind or get his comeuppance at the end. And they just don't. They just don't do that.
Henry Wu is the most overused, underdeveloped character I've ever seen. Like in the first movie, he is exposition. He's there to explain a specific item about what's going to happen in the park. Then he's gone for all the movies until Jurassic World, where all of a sudden he's just evil for no good reason. We never established that he was evil in the first Jurassic Park movie. And then I can't remember, but in Fallen Kingdom, he was just like hell-bent on getting Blue and like understanding, everything there was to know about Blue, and how this raptor in particular was not docile, but trainable, or something along those lines. Like what in her genome or genetic code is like allowed Blue to be like that. And then this one, it's like he's another completely different character arc, and I'm like, make up your mind with what you want this character to be, because if you keep throwing noodles at the wall to see which one will stick, like that's not how you develop a character.
There's a quick paragraph on Wikipedia that explains his inclusion in Jurassic World, which is that Colin Trevorrow wanted more connective tissue between his movie and the old one. And he literally looked at who is still alive, and he was the only character that survived the events of the first three movies. Outside of Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum, who he couldn't or didn't want to get back. It was like, well, John Hammond in universe is dead, and Sam Jackson died, and Muldoon died, and Nedry died. Everyone else in the story is gone. And it's like, well, there was this one guy in the first movie let's just get him back and give him more lines. And it was like, okay. I remember seeing that in theaters, everyone going like, hey, look, it's B.D. Wong. Like, people were excited, and I'm like, really? He wasn't an important guy. I thought they had the potential to make him into a really good villain, and they just didn't. They never did. They never kind of built him into that role.
All right, let's kind of close it up with maybe one last thought about this movie. Anything else you didn't get to say that you want to make sure you say before we move on? Andrew, you got anything?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of like short films on YouTube and stuff. Like you can call them prequels or like
We're going to talk about that later.
oh, we are?
Oh, I think we just got a buried treasure.
Well, then
indeed.
I'm just going to
tease.
hold off and say that
Hold
there
on,
is
hold-
no
Yes.
post-credit scene.
Yes, that's right. There's a pre-credit scene, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Aaron, what about you? What is your final thing on this?
I think for me, one thing I haven't talked about, and I do want to talk about this. I think for me, the thing that the Jurassic World movies did that I think messed up the universe more than anything else is they decided the dinosaurs should be human characters. And that works two ways against some of the things we loved about the original. Number one, you make the dinosaurs the villains, like you give them actual motivation.
Yeah.
They'll come back in 6 seconds.
Yeah,
I hope
I'll be
so.
back. I'll be back.
Very good.
They're doing internet work around here, which is exciting because they're putting in fiber. So hopefully I'll have some like super nice.
Oh, we lost him again.
Yeah, there's always one spot in the show where Aaron like freezes out.
There's
for like
several, and it's so annoying. But yes, anyways, they're putting in fiber, so that's very exciting because it'll be super high speed, but also very annoying because apparently they just have to shut off my internet for 5 seconds every once in a while. So that's wild. I'll start that thought over. So making the dinosaurs human has done a couple things. One is they've made the dinosaurs villains, which gives them motivations that they haven't had in the other movies and that they don't need. It's much scarier to me if they're just animals because animals are unpredictable, right? Like humans, I kind of get. Like motivations, movies know how to short circuit or change or whatever. But so
yeah, piggybacking on that, it's actually crazy that in 3 movies, I don't think Blue kills a single human.
correct.
And it's kind of like, what? You have a trained raptor? We never once see it like unleashed? Come on.
This is the other part. It makes the dinosaurs we have to love them and save them. And, and listen, I'm a huge animal lover. I think you should love and save animals, but not because, of their sapience. Well, now it's just getting ridiculous. So apologies. It is more just because of how the conservationist aspect, as opposed to making it more about they have human thoughts, they're making them intellectual animals, which changes so many things, and it's kind of been annoying to me. So yeah, that would be my one last thing.
Yeah.
Lastly, I wanted to point out, I guess this is kind of a pro, and I appreciate what Dominion did, at least what it attempted to do, which is of the 6 movies or of the 5 sequels, this is certainly, for better or worse, the most original. It actually tried some new things and extrapolated the threads of the last movies and extended them to their natural conclusions. I think a lot of people are going to be turned off by that, because instead of theme parks and dinosaurs, we're talking about human cloning and genetics and experimentation. And it becomes a science thriller and locusts. And I think that's definitely like a natural progression of where they were leading. I don't think it's the finish line that anyone really wanted. And I think because of that, I can't imagine a lot of younger audiences enjoying or even understanding the first like 90 minutes of this film. It is 2.5 hours long. And like for the first half, they're just, again, moving pieces on the board to get things ready. And I think the dinosaur action is so few and far between in that early hour that younger audience is going to be like, what? This is, I don't care about this. Like this, you're talking about a black market trade on the streets of Malta. Like it's interesting, but it feels like it's from a separate film. It really does. Yeah. A separate franchise, even.
Well, there you go. That is Jurassic World Dominion, which I have seen both with the colon and without the colon. One way it's Jurassic World Dominion. The other way it's Jurassic World Dominion, which I kind of like the second version better. But yeah, I would not recommend it. But if you've seen Jurassic movies, you're going to have a few things with the dinosaurs.
I would say if you've already seen Maverick in IMAX, This is not a bad watch. Maybe
Not
a matinee price, maybe.
something like that.
But
Yeah, it
only if
shouldn't
you've
be
already
your-
seen Top Gun.
It shouldn't be your first pick whenever you go to the movie
Correct.
theaters. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. All right, let's move on to our second film. Let's talk a little about RRR is what we're going to go with. Let's talk about RRR. A fictional history of two legendary revolutionaries' journey away from home before they began fighting for their country in the 1920s. RRR is an interesting movie to set up before we kind of go into this. It is available on Netflix. It is the most expensive Indian film ever produced. It is available in several dubs. The Hindi version is the version that is on Netflix, that is dubbed in Hindi, as well as there are plenty of English-speaking actors as well, who are dubbing their roles in English. So yeah, as far as people you may have heard of, Ray Stevenson is in there, who you may know from some things. Allison Doody, who you may know from Indiana Jones.
Last Crusade. Things did not end well for her. Tell you that right now. She was. I mean, how painfully obvious is it to not go past the seal? She heard the same thing that everybody else did.
So let's talk about RRR. Some of the names you may not have heard of, but are in this movie, is Inte Ramo Rao Jr., who plays Beam, and then Ram is played by Alluri Siddhamari Raju. So yeah, let's talk about it. What did you guys think of RRR? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? Andrew, kick us off.
I'm going to go with loved it. Low side, I loved it, but I loved it. I really did.
Nice. John?
High side, I loved it. This was phenomenally fun.
Yeah, I'm going to join you in the loved it camp. Maybe right around Andrew more than John. I do have some negatives that we can talk about. But man, what a fun movie! Like,
oh my gosh,
you mentioned Jurassic World Dominion being 2.5 hours, just being 2.5 hours. This is over 3 hours.
3 hours.
Oh man, and it feels like it in the best way. Like there are like 5 different movies here, and they jam them all in, and it works. It doesn't feel overstuffed. It feels like you're getting a full plate, and you are being fed just gourmet food after gourmet. It's great. Every sequence is just one-upping the last, and there's not a lot of downtime. It's paced well, but not like breathlessly. There's enough beats where we kind of slow down, and then we pick up. We do another big 20-minute sequence.
Yeah,
and I just had so much fun. This is just over the top in the best way.
It continues the 2020s trend of putting your title card 40 minutes into the movie.
Yeah. 42 minutes. I looked at my watch. I was like, wow, okay.
I mean, they kept teasing it. It's interesting. Like at the beginning of the movie, you get R's, like as a chapter title.
Right.
But then after like the full title is revealed, the chapter thing stops.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, structurally there is some weird things going on there.
I don't hate it.
No, it didn't bother me, but it was like, oh yeah, I guess they're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm like. Oh,
but it wasn't but it was something that was done with a purpose, and then that purpose ended, right? Like like it is literally a movie as a cold open. Like it is with 3 movies.
That could have been a movie. That first 45 minutes.
Yes, like easily. In the so the R is in. And by the way, we're going to be talking fairly freely about this movie, so there are things you might consider spoilers if you just want to fast forward to the best ever challenge. Totally understand that.
This is more of a spectacle film though, and not really like a densely plotted, dramatic affair.
One of the reviews I read after I watched it last night said something along the lines of, it's the kind of movie that you can't really spoil, because even if you say what's happening, watching it is still amazing. Yeah, it just doesn't matter. So we're kind of taking that.
Like I could say, mindset. I could use the phrase "weaponized tiger," and that would be a spoiler. But also, it's like, that sounds super cool. I need to watch this movie.
Exactly right.
Weaponized tiger. Just wild.
So the cold open is basically the story, the fire, and the water. And I love one of the things I love about this movie, and there are plenty of things I love about this movie. So the positive section for this review will go on for a while, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But one of the things I love about this movie is that it doesn't force feed you its themes. Like just calling it the fire in the water is enough. And it's like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing here with, this character being represented by water and some of the characteristics of water, and this character being represented by fire and some of the characteristics of fire, and the way you're playing that metaphor through the actual fight scenes and, the things that they're using and the shots you're doing of fire and water. Like, the movie it puts it in your face in the best way, where it's like you get to understand it, even though the movie's not, making, I guess, expositioning it, and making dialogue about, oh, you're the fire guy, like it's some movies would do that, and this movie's just like, no, you're gonna get it, you're gonna understand what's going on here. So yeah, I really do.
And when fire and water finally come together under the bridge, hanging on ropes, I like cheered out loud. And I'm sitting alone watching it by myself. I did not have the opportunity, I don't know about you guys, to see this in a theater. I've heard the theatrical experience is, one of the best of the year. I
imagine
if it's playing locally, it's not playing anywhere in my neck of the woods.
No,
but this feels like the best kind of movie to just get inebriated with friends and family and just kick back and eat a lot of junk food. This is this feels like a party kind of a movie. Like, just have a blast with it.
Yeah,
I don't know if this is what you meant by that, John, but I don't think that this is a movie that's like yeah, let's get drunk and watch just watch a crazy movie. I think that there's actually some really
there is
amazing things going on, not only visually but thematically. I think I'll say this just now, just to get it out of the way. I only have one con for this movie, and I'm going to say that the inciting incident, like at the very beginning, is so cringy and like a
cartoon villain.
Like, you're like, if you were curious about what people thought about colonial, a British colonial occupation of India, I think this movie pretty much sums it up how they felt about it.
This is my one negative as well, and let's go ahead and go here, and then we just gush over the movie. But that is the over the top cheesiness that happens in this movie is occasionally distracting to me. And we recently reviewed Interceptor is also on Netflix, right? And yes, I'm about to compare Interceptor and RRR. And here is what I know. You're shaking your head. I understand.
I'll come over there. I know where you live. I'll come over there.
But I think there is something about the idea of like why we go so hard against a movie like Interceptor, which has cheesy dialogue and dumb scenes, when a movie like this also has cheesy dialogue in crazy over the top action, unrealistic things that are happening. And I think there is an easy answer to that. I think the easy answer is that RRR is just a smarter movie overall, like a smarter story.
It's also self-aware. It knows what it's doing.
Correct.
Is it self-aware, or is this just the style that we should expect from a Bollywood film?
Technically, Tollywood. Actually,
Tollywood. Yeah. It was technically.
Well, then IMDb just lied to me.
It's from Telangana, which is a separate region in India.
And it's important to mention that because I do know people very specific in particular about the idea of Bollywood.
Oh, trust me, I know. Whenever I was doing YouTube, I did a review for a movie that I thought was a Bollywood film, and let's just say that they let me know in the comments how wrong
that said, though, I think to answer your question, it is definitely prevalent within Indian cinema that they have a tendency, especially within the action genre, to have these bigger, over the top, sort of self-aware movies.
This is their Marvel,
Yeah, I mean, I think they know what they're doing. It's deliberate. This RR felt to me like the Fast and the Furious if it was funnier and had music and was even more self-aware of how insane the physics of it is. And I think if Vin Diesel and Paul Walker, God rest his soul, if they had broken out to song in the middle of like Fast 5 and done like a little dance number, that would have been great. I would have been on board for that.
Guys,
this
It's my favorite part of the movie. The music
It's
in
so
this
good.
movie is
It's so
so
good.
good, and it's expositional. Like
It
it's
is.
narration, it's narrational music at times, and I love it so much.
Yeah, there's a great montage where our two leads slowly become friends and buddies. And the theme
Oh,
song is like
yeah.
one guy is really this guy is they become
It's
friends from
almost
different
as
worlds.
expositional as like Gilligan's Island or something.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
like a sitcom theme song. It's like it's amazing.
Describing where they came from, why they're friends, and like, but later on that might become enemies. Like it's literally telling you what will
I'm
happen.
sure that
Brilliant.
there is a beauty lost in translation from
Sure,
Hindi to
of
English,
course.
but for us,
Yeah,
for
he's reading the
American
song.
speakers reading the subtitles, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
It was very funny.
But
And that montage was
beautifully
delightful because
shot.
not only does
Oh.
the lyrics remind me of an old sitcom, the visuals reminded me of like an 80s sitcom where everyone's just like turning to camera like, this is my name, this is my credit. And it felt like the opening to Full House or Growing Pains. Like they're just everyone's smiling, everybody's like walking with their elbows up, just like having a great time. And it is such a fan, and this is 50 minutes into the movie, but like it's such a fantastic way to like open that sort of chapter of the film and get us into where we need to be, where the division starts happening between them. And I don't know, this movie works in so many ways because it just does things Hollywood never would. And I'm just because it's so fresh, and maybe if I watched a lot more Indian cinema, it wouldn't feel as unique to me. But I don't have a lot of experience with that stuff. So this was like, oh, this is fantastic. I've never seen a movie go as hard as RRR. Like it just goes for the fences every time.
It is impressive how much it does that. I really enjoyed many things about this movie. The music is definitely one of them. The music and dancing, I should say. But the fighting was also interesting. Because again, it was metaphorical, and yet at the same time, it was I think it was supposed to be literal. Like we're supposed to literally believe what's happening on the screen is actually happening.
And to our point we made about Jurassic World, I felt like almost all of the action and certainly some of the chase sequences were well plotted and choreographed. And we had a lot of wide shots and a lot of like pretty decent oneers. We had, good 20-30 second shots throughout. They were probably all stitched together from multiple takes, but there's a couple sequences where we just like hang on one guy as he fights off 4 guys at once. And I love that stuff. It looked great. It has like this overly glossy, bright, saturated sheen to it, but it works. And it looks like a really slick music video set to this awesome Indian soundtrack with these big buff guys just flawlessly executing everyone in their way without ever missing. I don't think any of them miss a shot once. That's fine. I'm on board. It was great.
It's clear. It's the action in more of the motivations even are so clear. Like we are set up so quickly. This character needs to do this. This other character needs to do this.
And they're diametrically opposed.
And now they are best friends, but they don't know that their main primary ultimate goal in life is contradictory to each other. What a beautiful setup. That's all you need. And like to the tension is just built in. You don't need to do a lot to stoke that fire. It's right there. And you add to that the fact that the water fire stuff is such a perfect representation of the situation they're in. Water and fire, you would think of, are opposites. They are going to result in the extinguishing of one or the other of them. They cannot work together to do any kind of job. And yet this movie goes, but can they? And there's so much about this movie that's not just crazy action. There's some real thought here.
It reminded me of like at least from a plotting perspective, a bit like a soap opera, like these big sort of operatic conflicts, but they're distilled and sort of focused in such a narrow beam that, like you said, you kind of get the conflict so quickly that the rest is just this like dramatic irony throughout that really, I think works really effectively. And they paid off a couple different times over in a way that felt organic to the story and the characters. And it was so surprising to see where this would go, especially since it feels like only 2 hours into the 3-hour movie, the story's kind of wrapping up, and it's like, oh no, they have another gear to this. They're going to go an entirely different way for the final act. And yeah, without spoiling too much, that was my favorite section. Like when they finally kind of turn that last corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question for you guys, and I guess Aaron, you would be the best one to answer this. The dynamic and the chemistry, I should say, between our two leads reminded me a lot of Gene Kelly and Donald O'Connor. You know, like I'm not even trying to be joking here. Like,
sure,
no, I kind of love that.
Their acting ability, the way they can dance. You know, like there was a chemistry that felt like it transcended the film.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm really upset we never got to see Gene Kelly in like a really good action movie.
Yeah. Well, you could call this movie "Firing in the Rain." Like, I mean, you know.
I gotta see that. That's a really good.
I mean, it plays with the water fire themes and everything. Let's go, Firing in the Rain. Yeah. Let's do it.
By the way, that sequence where they're in the courtyard and like one has the fire behind him and the other has the water behind him. It might be like one of the most visually beautiful sequences.
It was so good. Everything is very like Renaissanceian in the way that like these frames are composed, and everything is super slow motion, so you can appreciate the way they come out of like this swirling fireball that just perfectly vignettes their entire silhouette, and they kind of step through it like this guy looks like a GQ model come to life. He's shirtless, he's on fire, he's oily, and he's ready to just kick ass and take names.
Yeah,
and the movie just leans into that like visual aesthetic, almost in lieu of dialogue in some places. Like they just a lot of the visuals and a lot of just these like dialogue free stares do all the speaking in a lot of places. And then when the characters first meet, they just communicate with a type of sign language, and they don't even speak for the first. It's just like, I'm going to do this, you're going to do this, okay.
So
and it's
great.
like, I love that. There's something very simplistic about how much is told without words in this, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, I think my favorite sequence in this movie is the not kneeling while singing.
Sure.
I think that's
the Braveheart scene.
It's the Braveheart scene. Yeah.
That was good.
I wonder what this movie, like what this like director, writer, this whole thing could do or look like with a full like Hollywood budget. Like we say this is the highest grossing, the most expensive, Hollywood film ever made.
It cost 72. It's already made 160.
No, it cost 45.
I read 72 as well. So
I just look as 3.5 billion rupees is what it's saying on IMDb is what the and that translates to unless there's been an incredibly drastic decline in
there can be. That's the thing. Like it could the cost could have been different in conversion to American dollars when they spent it versus what
also,
it is now.
Wikipedia might be listing total production and marketing, whereas IMDb might just be only production.
Could be.
I don't know. Either way, the movie was very expensive, on par with any American film, with the exception of the big tent poles. And it's doing great. It's playing well, certainly internationally, but it's playing well really in America too, which I love to see more people find foreign films and experiment and try stuff that I don't know that my parents would ever put this on, but like I'm going to recommend it to them because it's so much fun, and hopefully they'll give it a chance.
Yeah,
it's I can't. 3 hours seems daunting, but man, I would love to see this again.
I will tell you, my wife watched this with me, and she was definitely aware of the 3 hours. There were a couple times she was like, "This is still happening," and she did not enjoy it as much as I did. So I don't know that this is like across all quadrants kind of.
Yeah,
movie.
I don't know that it is.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. I could see Jen going, "This is still happening," and me just going, "This is still happening."
her response at the end was, "I think you really liked that movie." That was her review.
That's such a polite way to be condescending. Well, I think you
condescending at all. It wasn't condescending at all.
I will say, in respect to my wife, she was busy working, and then she kept coming in and out of the room as I was watching, and she kept stopping and being like, "Okay, yeah, this is." And then by the end of the movie, she was like, "I think I just watched an hour of that, just sort of accidentally." And I'm like, "Yeah, it has that effect." Like she couldn't look away from it, and she didn't necessarily even need to know all the stuff that was happening. Just individual moments were enough. And she was like, "No, this looks cool, and I'm having fun." And I briefed her on like the kind of the background of the characters, and so even if you just watch it, in bits and pieces.
So here's another part of the movie that would fly over most of our heads, and only I mean it wouldn't fly over our heads. Like I think it's fairly obvious that it's going on, but as far as how deep the meaning is to it, might fly over our heads. But it's a very jingoistic, nationalistic film. This is a movie about India's independence, and the entire final dance number is a tribute to like the heroes of India's independence movie. When there's a moment where a character wraps themselves in a flag to protect them, that flag is the pre-independence revolution flag. Like this is a movie about something deep and meaningful to this country. It would be similar to our revolution movies or the Patriot or something like that.
It would be analogous to seeing a movie like, again, picture Fast and Furious, but instead of Vin and Paul, it's George Washington and Benjamin Franklin. And they're like racing horses through the streets of Boston.
Well,
that's kind of what I got.
This is Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter for India. Like this is that idea, and should be seen as such. Like there's again, I think you're completely right, John. I think they're completely self-aware. They know what's going on here, just like a movie like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter knows. Like they're not saying these, because these are the names of actual heroes in the fight for independence. But it is completely fictional, obviously, what they're saying happened here. So yeah.
There's also something else interesting too that I don't know if it's something I don't fully understand, but what I got is there's a scene towards the end where Ram is the character's name, where he is like adorned with like mud, and he has a bow and arrow, and he has face paint on, and they're singing a song. Yeah, he's going Rambo mode. There's a song playing in the background saying Rama, blah, 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 blah. Rama is a god in the Hindi language who uses a bow and arrow to protect the people. So
yes, I don't pick up on that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I thought it sounded cool though.
But I just figured that would be a little cool thing for you guys to see.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not the intent, and I'm just picking up on something, Well, but it felt like it was, and then Bhima is another, and then whenever the other character Beam, he comes out of the water with the spear and everything. I'm pretty sure Bhima is another, like either mythological character or he's a hero, like a folk hero or something.
I think there's some really interesting, nuanced stuff going on here with the themes and the messaging and the metaphor, and I really, really love it. And I wish I got all that stuff a little more, but that's part of what makes it beautiful, right? Is just seeing this perspective that you're just unaware of. In the other thing, like you could call it like the Patriot, that kind of movie, from our history. We have our own War of Independence from England. Every country does, apparently.
Hey, sun never set on the British Empire until it did.
But it would be like that, because this was, I think officially India didn't gain independence till the late 40s. So this is just like recent history too. So it'd be like that movie, but made, with a more recent history of, we had to fight for this 80 years ago, kind of thing. So yeah,
it wasn't until like Gandhi,
There are certainly people alive right now who lived in British India. You know what I mean? Like that is
100%.
So that's that's wild. To kind of consider it that way. So yeah, it's definitely, it's meaningful, very deep and meaningful.
So it sounded like the only negatives you guys really had were just that the British villains were a bit over the top and a bit one-sided.
It wasn't even that. Here, I guess this is a better way to explain, like, my big issue with this movie is that inciting incident with the girl and everything.
Okay, yeah.
Everything in this movie felt secondary to the relationship between Beam and Ram.
Yeah.
Like, what was going on between them was the most, like, fascinating part of the movie. And I get you can't have that dichotomy without this inciting incident or anything. It just felt like it was the simplest way to get to that tension between the two
Yeah,
characters
right.
that I was like, yeah, but these two guys, they sold it so good that the Doobie or the Duty and Ray Stevenson character, I was like, yeah, what's going on with you guys? I don't really care. I want to see what's going to happen with these two guys.
Yeah, that's it. For me, is the most of the English acting throughout is terrible. And
I don't know if, well, you brought this up last week with the Interceptor. Is this how they are told to perform? You know,
I don't know.
fit?
Yeah, and that's
I've seen Ray
and again,
Stevenson
yes,
do some really good work.
no, absolutely. And this is why we say this every time. The actor's performance you see is not their responsibility at the end of the day. The actor's performance you see on the screen has had many hands crafting it, especially the editing, directing, those kind of things. So,
Yeah.
So yes, this is not a slam on Duty or Stevenson. It's not even really a big slam. It's just saying, because I had the same thing with Squid Game, right? There is something where it's like, and this is a beautiful experience for us to have, because so many people in the world have this with our movies, where, you know, somebody who is playing, you know, them, quote unquote, their, you know, their perspective, their idea, their culture, those kind of things. We don't know how to, or we're very poor, I should say, as our American Western culture directors, editors, those kind of things, at understanding what maybe their best takes are, or how their language works in a way emotionally that maybe we don't quite catch. And so now we get to experience how an American, you know, performance gets put out there by somebody who that's not their first language or their first understanding of how the emotion works. So, you know, it's I think a reminder to directors of all cultures and persuasions to have people around them that can craft those performances, that know the language, know the, you know, how that works. Because to an American, I'm not going to notice that if somebody speaking a different language in a movie it's not going to feel right to me, because I don't speak that language or come from that culture. But
yeah, I think it's to distill that. I think subtitles certainly masks poor performances or hide great performances potentially. Like I think
yes,
I think everyone did great, but because I'm reading it and not listening explicitly, I don't know how strong their performances are in their native language. Just like the English ones seem, because that sort of that separation. Like I do know what they're saying, and I don't have to read it. I can hear it and feel it, and it's like, okay, yeah, these feel a little flat.
Right.
And that might be that's probably how everyone else feels when they watch an American movie, potentially, if they don't speak English.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I had the exact same thing with Squid Game when the Americans showed up in Squid Game in that English acting, where it's just like, it's not crafted in the same way because the people putting it together don't necessarily hear it in the same way that we do. And that's fine. That's not necessarily what it's about. But it does impact my ability, like those cartoonish villain characters. It's kind of the point, but it does distract me every once in a while. So yeah, I think there is that.
Any final thoughts from anybody?
Give it a shot. You might be pleasantly surprised if you've never seen an Indian film and like you just been like, I don't know if it's something I like. I think this is the one to give a shot.
I'm going to be listening to the soundtrack and not understanding a word of what is said, but enjoying it completely. This is incredible music.
No, some of those songs legit slapped, and I was like, no, I have no idea what they're saying, but like, this is good. This is great right now. One without giving away spoilers, there is a scene involving a piggyback ride and a double rifle reload. I hollered. I was like, yes, that was so good.
Yeah,
there's a bunch of there's little moments like that where there's just like a little flourish on what could have just been a regular action shot, a regular scene. You just need to reload the gun, but like a double barrel piggyback ride reload. I'm like, yes, that was so good.
I guess I do have one more thing to say, because you brought up spoilers, and there are several story turns in this movie, but I think more than just story turns, This movie is very particular about when it gives you information, and I think it doles it out really, really well. There's a very specific piece of information and backstory that some lazier or unconfident movies would have given you a lot sooner and let you kind of start to piece together some things before. And this movie's like, nope, we're going to give it to you when it's time for you to know that, and we don't need you to like be thinking about it before then. And I was really impressed with the way
I know
this
what you're
movie
talking
rolls out.
about, and I completely agree. And I think that would be one of the few sort of spoilery things. We won't discuss it anymore, but completely agree. And I love the treatment of how they did that.
Yeah, I just thought it was really well handled. The information in this movie and how it was doled out was really well handled. Well, there you go. That is RRR, Rise, Revolt, Revenge.
Rise, Roar, Revolt.
One of them's Revenge. The last one's Revenge, I think.
Rise,
Uh,
Roar, Revolt.
According to the IMDb trivia, which I don't know how well you can choose it, like there's for every single language they've like they've changed it to where it fits.
Nice.
So let me see if I can find the English one.
I thought it was Rise, Roar, Revolt, but maybe
the film title has different abbreviations in different languages, but commonly called RRR. Rodram, Ranam, Redidu, and Rise, Roar, Revolt in both Hindi and English.
okay.
Nice. There you go. Well, whatever the R stand for, one of them should be run right out to Netflix and watch it because we all had a blast with it.
Yes.
All right, let's move in. Before we move in, I should say, to our best ever challenge. Just a reminder that you can be a SIF Pop member. Membership starts at $3 a month. Lots of fun stuff. For instance, this week on the bonus podcast for our members, which you get your own bonus podcast feed where all the episodes come, as well as all the bonus episodes and no ads. All that is at patreon.com/siftpop. This week we talked about the Jurassic movies. We did an official sift sort ranking of the Jurassic films. So if you want to check that out, you can become a SIF Pop member. And just to let you know how much we appreciate our SIF Pop members, we love giving you that extra content. So if you want to check out all the details, there's different levels, different fun little gifts that we give you. Patreon.com/siftpop. All right, let's do the best ever challenge. Best ever Jeff Goldblum movies. He's been in some doozies. We'll go from number 5 to number 1. Before we get into this, we kind of mentioned in the members pre-show that we would slot in Jurassic World Dominion into our sift sort.
Yeah.
Now, without giving away the order of the sift sort that we did for the members, I'd be curious what number you would put it at.
Second worst.
Second worst. Andrew?
Second or third worst. I'll go third worst.
Third worst. Yeah, I think
worst.
third worst is right. But again, this goes back to a conversation we had during a difference in opinion that we have about a particular movie that you'll have to listen to the members podcast to find out.
We don't usually disagree that strongly, so that was fun.
It was fun. It was fun. All right, best ever Jeff Goldblum movies. We will go number 5 to number 1, and you can trumpet if you have it higher. I'll kick us off at number 5. I have The Player at number 5. Do either of you have The Player on your list?
I enjoy that movie, but I honestly don't think it's that great.
Really?
Maybe I need to revisit it. I watched it when I was like a young 20-something in college, and I thought it was a little too pretentious and a little too self-aware. I mean, that opening oneer is like
I love the self-awareness though, like the meta-ness of it.
Maybe at the time I was not receptive to it. I got to revisit it. It feels a bit much. I do like it. It's not my top 5.
I think Tim Robbins is really good in it. I think it goes through some really interesting places. But yeah, it is. If you love movies and you start, it's kind of that thing, and it hit me right in that right place where it kind of came out right when I was starting to think of movies differently as not just something like, hey, let's pop in Swing Kids or Newsies or, Singing in the Rain or these movies that I love. Let's start thinking about the behind the camera kind of stuff. Who's directing? What are they doing? How are they choosing their shots? What's the framing like? what's the cinema, like starting to think deeper about movies. In this movie, in a meta way, is talking about all of that stuff. And I really, really enjoy it. So yeah, The Player is my number 5.
I haven't seen it in 16 years.
Okay.
So yeah, my life and outlook has changed dramatically.
I
since
watched
I was
it during the
20.
pandemic. I rewatched it. So yeah, it's one I think to check out. Andrew, what do you got at number 5?
It's going to get trumped. I think, kind of like last week, all of mine are going to get trumped. So,
Okay, fair enough.
The Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah, I'll trump that. I'll go ahead and trump that. Sean, what do you got at number 5?
This is where I had Thor Ragnarok.
I had the honorable mentions.
Yes, it was my first honorable mention, actually.
This is, I think, one of the funniest movies in the MCU. No thanks to, or all thanks to Taika Waititi. And Jeff is doing his thing. He's Jeff Goldblum in every movie. He does not really have a second gear, but it fits here as like a weird, eccentric, sort of bisexual space alien. Like, that's Jeff Goldblum, all right. It totally fits. He's super charming, and I think he slots into this bizarre, like, Thor universe so well. And yeah, he's a highlight in this picture for sure.
I agree. I think Thor Ragnarok is the right MCU movie kind of to go with Jeff Goldblum, even though I think he makes appearance in a couple others, just because he's crucial to this movie in a way.
Do we? I don't remember the rules. Not that I broke them this week, but cameos we exclude from a best ever. Challenge,
no, we do not.
No. If they're in a movie, it counts. Yeah.
Well,
it's best ever movie they're in, not best ever performance.
This is the intent. Everybody gets to play it how they want it. We have guests who are very adamantly like, no, I'm doing Jeff Goldblum movies. I don't want to put, something he's in a cameo in my list. And we're like, that's cool. You do you. But the intent is if their face or voice shows up in a movie, it counts, and we're ranking their movies.
Yep.
So you do what you want, or I'll do what I want.
That's right. I listen. Cameos will count in there. Like if somebody's doing like a box office total of an actor or something like that, they're gonna get those movies. Like they are in the movie, So yeah.
Fair enough.
Aaron, number 4.
Oh yeah, let's move on to our number 4s. Might get trumped. I have Independence Day at number 4.
Trump.
All right, both of you will trump that. So Andrew, what do you got at your number 4?
The Prince of Egypt.
I will trump that. So
see, I knew it. I knew this week everything as I said was going to get trumped.
John, what do you got at number 4?
The Fly.
Ooh,
very good. Very good. Barely missed my list.
When I first saw this, I was probably around the same time I saw The Player. I was like probably 19 or 20, and I hated it. I thought it was such a weird movie. It was super gross. Cronenberg, not my scene. I revisited it a couple years later, and my rating went from a 4 to a 9. And I think that's one of the only times I have flopped so dramatically on a film on a rewatch, because I think I just got it. I understood what they were doing. And when you kind of buy into those themes, irrespective of like the super gross, and to be fair, if you like good creature work and animatronics, it is phenomenal, but it is also very disgusting. And if you can get past that, the themes in this movie are just brilliant, and they're so well realized, and that climax is just like, it hits you like a ton of bricks. If you are invested in these characters, it is a really emotional, like depressing kind of traumatic ending. And he's just what's his name? Blump, I forget the character's name, but he's a very compelling character. This scientist that kind of gets consumed by his own hubris, literally. But you kind of feel for him the whole way, and I think that makes it a really, really great film, no matter which version you watch. There's an old one, I think, with Vincent Price that's also rather excellent.
A little conversational kismet. The director of RRR also made a movie called The Fly, about a murdered man reborn as a housefly and seeking revenge for
that sounds great. I love high concept stuff. That sounds great.
And he seeks revenge as a housefly.
Yeah. So really interesting stuff. So
do you guys where do you fall on Cronenberg? Do you like his stuff, or is
I don't like body horror?
Yeah, body horror is not my thing.
It's Scanners, Videodrome. They're all like, there's some really gross stuff.
I've heard some good things about the new one. I just haven't gone to see it.
Crimes of the Future. Yeah, that just came out to limited screenings.
That's not to say that I don't understand and acknowledge that he is a
Oh,
visual master. It's just that his style of film is kind of like, people who don't like Quentin Tarantino, I'm sure, like, yeah, I get that he's an amazing director. It's just that the overindulgence
and
of
I think
violence and
it's
stuff.
definitely like an accessibility thing. And I know The Fly is not the type of movie a lot of people are going to enjoy.
Yeah.
All right, on to our number threes.
Yep.
This is where I have the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yay.
Me as well.
Oh, nice. So John and I have should it be Grand Budapest Hotel at number 3? And Andrew, you had it at number 5. Is that correct?
That is so correct.
Yeah, this is a really good movie and really fun. And it's like a tale of two careers for me with Wes Anderson. Like, there was just a point that happened where I was like, all of a sudden I love every movie he makes. But before that, I'm like, this is not that interesting to me.
I'm completely agree. I had a very similar kind of experience with Wes Anderson. I kind of watched a lot of his movies out of sequence. I think Grand Budapest was only like the second or third of his I watched before I had seen Life Aquatic, Moonrise Kingdom, or Rushmore. I saw Grand Budapest. But this, for my money, probably his best film. It's just I think a more clear thematic concept going on here. And because it all kind of takes place around the same location with this big ensemble, it feels a little more focused than like French Dispatch, for example, is just like a smattering of like 8 different plots. And they're all fun, but they don't really connect they don't really connect at all, actually. But yeah, Grand Budapest is just visually vibrant. The performances are just eclectic and fun and sarcastic, and I love everything that's happening here. It's such a fun little world to be in for a couple hours.
How can you say the French Dispatch doesn't connect? It's all connected. It's about a paper.
It connects in like the same way that like Tommy Westfall connects different universes. Like it's not really.
No, French Dispatch felt more like a what's his name? He didn't like Snatch and Guy Ritchie. It felt kind of like a Guy Ritchie, where you have this spider webs.
Yeah, right.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All righty. So I think that means, Andrew, we're looking for your number 3 to get trumped.
Yeah, it'll get Trump probably Independence Day.
Trump.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thanks, John.
There you go. John will trump that. All right, on to our number 2s. This is where I have The Prince of Egypt at number 2.
Wait, no, we got to talk about John's number 3, right?
His number 3 was Grand Budapest.
Oh, you shared it?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, well, how fun is that?
Indeed.
I have recently rewatched The Prince of Egypt.
Same.
And every time I watch it, it goes up in my estimation. What an incredible film. Really the only thing I have against it is at this point is a kind of a part of its time, which is the casting. It's a very white cast for a Mesopotamian story. But yeah, it is incredibly well done. The themes are beautiful, perfect. I buy it all. The music is some of the best music animated films have ever produced.
Let My People Go is one of the best songs ever.
Deliver Us, is astonishing.
Deliver Us too, yeah.
Yeah. So there's just so much great going on here. I love this movie. Prince of Egypt comes in at number 2 for me. Andrew, you had it at
4.
Number 4. So,
would have just made my honorable mentions. Probably like 6 or 7 on my list.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like Aaron, I just recently rewatched this within the past like 2 months. And the plague scene is like one of my favorite scenes in any part of animation. And then of course, whenever the angel of death comes down, it's haunting. Yeah.
Yep.
And Aaron, you say it's a sign of the times, and having like white actors and stuff.
Yeah.
Don't forget, Ridley Scott not too long ago did Exodus: Gods and Kings, which is the exact same story with Christian Bale and Joel Edgerton and Sigourney Weaver.
I know. What I meant to say was
we should be improving as a society,
correct.
But we're not.
Yes, correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that puts us at your number 2, John. Is that right?
Correct. And this is where I have Independence Day, which remains a annual perennial favorite of mine. I cannot not watch it every July 4th. It's undeniably way too jingoistic and patriotic. It is just hoorah, go America. But there's something about that thing we mentioned with the dominoes, like that first July 2nd, you just stack up all the dominoes, and then July 3rd, you knock them down, and then July 4th, it's like the comeback. And that 3-act structure, all these characters, they all work. There's so much memorable dialogue. Everything out of Will Smith's mouth is like a fantastic one-liner that we still remember today.
Welcome to Earth.
I love Independence Day. Like, I have no shame admitting this is like one of my top 10 favorite movies, even though it is just like really shallow blockbuster fluff from the mid 90s. And that's kind of my scene.
We all had it, right? I had it at number 4. You had it at number 3, Andrew, and you had it at number 2.
Yeah, so I'm not way off base. I definitely love it more than most people, but I think we all agree it's a pretty excellent.
No, it's
the quintessential summer blockbuster.
Yeah, it kind of reinvented summer blockbusters as disaster, high cast disaster films, which isn't new. It's not like those hadn't been done before, but it reinvented the summer blockbuster as that. In some ways. So,
and I will maintain the tagline: "Don't make plans for August." One of the best ever. I love that. I love that tagline. It's right on the poster.
That's great. All right. So that is
my number 2.
Your number 2, Andrew. What do you got?
Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. I know nobody's going to trump this one.
No, I'm not a big fan.
This is my favorite Wes Anderson movie.
Nice.
I watched all of his movies like in order, like as they came out. I went and saw them, and I thought that out of all of his movies, and he's kind of gotten away from this. Like, he still has a dry sense of humor to his movies, but there's also like a giddiness to his newer films that like wasn't present in his earlier ones.
Yes.
That I think the dryness and the deadpanness style of comedy that Life Aquatic had is just so fun. I have such a good time. Like,
I mean, Bill Murray helps there. He's sort of the king of sardonic humor, right?
That's exactly what
he does. That dry wit.
Yeah. And
There's
this this animosity between him and Jeff Goldblum that is just like their rival nautical explorers. And what a weird thing to compete with somebody with, and there's a whole revenge arc to this that is just so ridiculous. Like, he's an aquatic explorer, but his friend got killed by a shark, a one-of-a-kind species of shark. And instead of, like doing the normal thing of like being an aquatic explorer, oh, let's go discover the shark, he's like, no, it killed my friend, I'm gonna get a bunch of dynamite and blow it up. Like, who thinks of something like this? The answer is Wes Anderson, of course.
Yeah.
But,
that is who.
And the music is great too. Every single bit of music is I got to look up his name. Sue Georges. He's a French musician. He does French acoustic reworks of David Bowie's music, and that's all the soundtrack to this movie is.
That's right.
It's just French acoustic David Bowie. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Nice. That is Life Aquatic, and that is your number 2. So I think it's just our number 1s.
I feel like we might all be in unison again.
Yeah. I mean, it was the number 1 earlier. I mean, there's no reason it shouldn't be again.
Yeah, I have Jurassic Park at number 1.
Yeah.
That is the number 1.
And define my childhood.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, this movie is perfect.
It kind of is.
When I think of like the movie experience, it's this and like 4 other things. It's just such a quintessentially cinematic experience. And I think it's a rite of passage for an American child to watch this movie, get scared out of their mind, and then become obsessed with dinosaurs.
But it's hard.
It's so good.
It's hard to overstate how world-changing it was in 93?
93.
And I didn't see it in theaters. I didn't see it until it came out on tape like a year later.
How world-changing it was in 93 to go in a movie theater and go, oh, dinosaurs are real. Like, like
Stan Winston won the Oscar for a reason. He did some stuff here that still looks better than movies today.
Absolutely.
30 years ago.
And the result then is there's this extra level of connection to the characters in the movie because you're experiencing the same thing they are. They are going back to this soon to be amusement park and having this experience of, oh my goodness, dinosaurs are real. And the audience is having the exact same experience in the theater. Like, that Spielberg is taking us to an amusement park and showing us that, dinosaurs are real. So, it's hard to overstate the impact that had in 93. And now once even past, 20 30,
Nice.
right? 30 years later, it is one of those things where you could watch it now and it's just still a great movie, even after all the special effects you've seen over the last 30 years and the things that are happening.
Hold up.
It's still captivating and amazing. So I don't know
And
that they completely there are still some shots especially in 4K where you're like, oh, I can see that's older CG, happening here in this scene or whatever. But the story is so good, the structure is so good, the plotting is so good, the tension is so good. It's
and the characters are iconic. Every one of them is, I think generally the legacy of a film, especially one like this, can pretty well be plotted by how well we remember character names versus actor names.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like Dr. Alan Grant is like, oh yeah, I know that movie. I know what movie you're talking about.
Yeah, who's Sam Neill?
Yeah, whereas like a minute ago, I couldn't even remember the name of whoever Jeff Goldblum played in The Fly. It's like, it's just Jeff Goldblum in The Fly. I don't remember the character name. But like this is the type of movie where you do kind of remember those details. And one thing we haven't mentioned somehow in the sift sort earlier or now is the music. And for my money, despite his incredibly illustrious and successful career, the best stuff John Williams has ever done is Welcome to Jurassic Park. That theme is every time goosebumps. It is so good.
Duel of the Fates would like to have a conversation, but
that's up there. That's up there. I mean, the original Star Wars album, Superman, E.T. He's done so many good soundtracks, but this is still my favorite.
What an year.
And what's funny is he didn't even get nominated that year for Jurassic Park because Schindler's List did and won instead.
That's wild.
Yeah,
that's wild.
There's few movies that I can say defined me as a person, like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, James Bond to an extent. Jurassic Park was one of the very first movies, like early in my life, that defined me as a person.
Yeah. Yep, there you go. Jurassic Park, a unanimous #1 best ever Jeff Goldblum movie. Honorable mentions. Who would like to go first with throwing out some others?
I have, how many honorable mentions do I have? I have 5.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Well, actually, no, I take that back. I have 3 because you guys mentioned a couple of them. I'll just throw them out real quick then. Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
I had that one as well.
Yeah, that movie holds up. It really
does. It actually really does. I saw it for the first time in the last couple of years.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. Yep.
What'd you think of the ending with Donald Sutherland? Just
it's still creepy. It's still creepy.
Every single time. Every single time.
Yeah.
Isle of Dogs. Speaking of Wes Anderson,
also my honorable mentions.
How about just Wes Anderson?
Yes, this is a category.
Yeah. There is a movie that came out a couple years ago that nobody besides me liked called Hotel Artemis.
Mm-hmm. I don't even know what this is.
Oh, you never saw Hotel Artemis?
Never heard of it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to read you the cast list for this real quick. Right. And you're going to be like, how did they get every single one of these people? So you have Jodie Foster, Dave Bautista, Sterling K. Brown. Obviously, you have Jeff Goldblum, Brian Tyree Henry, Zachary Quinto, Charlie Day. It's a huge cast, and what it's about is kind of like in John Wick. You have the hotel where all the villains can, the Continental. This is a hotel technically, but it's really a hospital for the criminals, and basically it takes place in LA in the future, and like LA is being like overrun with water shortage riots. Like crazy riots are going on outside. So you have all the criminals in LA trying to go to the hotel for sanctuary, and insanity ensues. I had a great time with this movie. Yes, it's it's nothing new. There's nothing special about it, but it's fun. I had a lot of fun with this movie.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
You liked it much more than I did, but it has its
See,
moments.
I'm the only one. I am the only one who really dug this movie.
That leaves me with 3 others, all older films. Annie Hall, I think, is worth mentioning. The Right Stuff is a good one. In Nashville, Altman's Nashville is also.
I do
an
not
interesting
care
film.
for that.
Wait, he was in The Right Stuff?
Maybe my
He is briefly. I think he's like one of the technicians or one of the guys. He's not an astronaut.
He is recruiter. That is his.
He's in it though. Like
he's young.
Yeah.
No, you're 100% right. And if I would have thought about it, Right Stuff would have.
Here's another movie I don't remember who he played, but Charles Bronson's original Death Wish. I think it's a really solid action thriller, and
nice.
I think Jeff might play one of the goons that like jumps him at one point. This is 1974. Jeff Goldblum would have been very young in his career, but yeah, Death Wish is a great film.
Oh God, yeah, I love.
If you like seedy, dark New York crime thrillers.
Okay, so there you go. Best ever Jeff Goldblum movies. I think we can finish up with some buried treasure, guys.
Death Wish was his very first film.
Oh, nice.
Freak number 1.
He's definitely just like a hoodlum. He doesn't really have.
Mom, Dad, I got a role. It's a movie called Death Wish, and I'm freak number 1.
Charles Bronson.
Yeah, but it's Charles Bronson's in it, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
all right, let's go on to buried treasure. Though it's that one thing in any area of pop culture you want to make sure people know about. John, you're our guest, so you will go last. Andrew, why don't you kick us off?
I have found probably one of the most fitting buried treasures for this week.
Oh, nice.
New miniseries on Apple TV Plus called Prehistoric Planet.
Okay.
It's already on my watch list. I've heard good things.
Oh, so good.
Tell us about it. I haven't seen it.
It's David Attenborough. He's doing his normal, planet stuff. And what fits is David Attenborough is the brother of, John Attenborough, who was, Hammond.
John Hammond, yeah.
He was Hammond in the Jurassic Park movies. It's his brother. But no, the CGI in this is astounding, and it's something I've wanted for a very long time to see done right. There's been plenty of attempts to do like a I guess you could say like a prehistoric National Geographic kind of thing. There's been First Life. There's been a couple others that just they didn't work. I don't know what magic they didn't have that this one does. Maybe it's the simple fact that it made it feel. Yeah, Richard, thank you. I don't know why I said Jonathan Attenborough because his name was John Hammond. That's why.
I understood.
Yeah, but yeah, Richard Attenborough. Thank you, Lollipop Shoes. I think the reason why this one works and the others didn't is because this one makes it seem like it takes place in real time. Like it's saying like the T-Rex is as opposed to the T-Rex was, or like the Quetzalcoatl is the largest flying, or as opposed to Quetzalcoatl was. So it makes this feel like a real world that is being lived in right now. And I don't think the other ones I'm talking about had David like doing the narration and stuff, but there's something magical and something about his voice that just
it's definitely like a mood setter. And I think
exactly.
To the point
it's
of
an
the
ASMR
visuals,
almost.
Having not actually seen this yet, I think to the point of the visuals, with the exception of big budget films that Spielberg was directing, documentary type projects like this did not have the budget to achieve that photorealism until very recently. Like there have been documentaries like this before on Nat Geo where they'll show you how dinosaurs live, but they always looked like cutscenes from PlayStation 2 or something. Like it was never. Exactly. And it's like I just want to see like a full nature doc in the style of Planet Earth, but about dinosaurs, and that's what this is. It sounds so cool. I can't wait to check it out.
Yeah, on Apple TV Plus, you can watch it in 4K, and it's stunning. Like some of the graphics and stuff that we saw here in Jurassic World Dominion, like some of the high level graphics, you'll see stuff that competes with that.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
nice.
It's really, really good.
Prehistoric Planet on Apple TV Plus. Mine is much lamer and lighter and fluffier. I love the Netflix reality TV show The Circle, and season 4 has recently come out.
It was so good.
Did you watch The Circle too? I love The Circle. I think it's
What's
so
the
much fun.
circle? I don't know anything about this.
So
Aaron, do your circle pitch.
So yeah, The Circle season 4 is on Netflix, and it is a show where basically it's like much reality TV where you're trying to survive to the end and win the show, get the votes of your peers, that kind of thing, except for nobody ever meets anybody else until they've already voted for the winner. So the whole show happens in separate rooms in a circle house where they only communicate through social media. So they only communicate through chats, through those, so they never see each other, hear each other's voice. It's all text based, so they're all texting each other, getting to know each other, that kind of stuff.
Don't have to go in as yourself,
and you do not have to be yourself. You can catfish, so you could come into the circle as a different person, and then that person could win the circle. But so it's really interesting human psychology.
I was going to say, this sounds like a tremendous experiment in human nature, and
it really is. It's also produced really well. I mean, it's light, fluffy, it's fun. The host is great. It's a very snide, sarcastic kind of narration type hosting, because obviously the host isn't in the room.
Michelle Bateau, I think is her name, or Batua. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, I think you're right. But I know
her name's Michelle.
I will say they also do really fun and interesting twists. For instance, one of the first seasons, somebody came in and catfished as somebody that they knew. Well, then in one of the later seasons, that actual person came in and catfished as somebody else. So like people who know the show and have watched the show are kind of doing that thing. One was not just a person, it was a mom and son were a person, and catfishing as a different person. This season, the Spice Girls, 2 of the Spice Girls actually come into the Circle House and catfish as another person and try not to get found out. It's really fascinating, interesting stuff. One of my favorite parts is the finale, where the final 4 or 5 who are in the finale actually meet each other.
They dress up and they have a dinner.
Yeah, they have a dinner together and they bring them into the room one at a time. And it's always my favorite thing when a catfish comes in and they're just like, "You're Michelle?" Like, like it's just really interesting, fun stuff. So The Circle season 4 on Netflix.
And how happy were you with this year's winner?
This year's winner was great. Just absolutely great. I really loved this season. I loved a lot of the characters on the season. I should say contestants, although certainly they are playing characters, sometimes literally playing characters. But yeah. So anyhow, that's my buried treasure is The Circle.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite season too of the 4.
And I will also say, just for those who are watching,
here we go again.
The cast from season 4 from the American Circle. So
you're gonna need to repeat that, Aaron. You blacked out for 10 seconds.
Oh, that's I was telling the live chat that the picture that they are seeing is not the American version of The Circle season 4. So
it's actually interesting.
I don't know any of those people.
It's interesting because The Circle, while it has like a mainly American cast, is not filmed in America. Filmed in England.
It's filmed in England. Yeah. A lot of stuff is filmed in England right now, by the way. It's kind of this interesting game show thing going on where just the tax wise and different things, it's much easier to bring people over to England to film than to try to do it in America. Yes, the actual Spice Girls, 2 of them, Baby and Scary, Baby Spice and Scary Spice, were in the house. So yeah.
Nice.
There you go. That is The Circle season 4.
I know you're a bit of a reality TV buff, so that is a strong recommendation from you if you liked it.
And even I, who am not a fan of reality TV, will champion the show and saying it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. It's one of the few things. It's one of the few things Netflix doesn't drop all at once too. They do drop several chunks of the season, but they don't drop the whole season at once. John, what do you got? What's your buried treasure?
My buried treasure this week, alluded to very early on in the show,
Yes.
is one of the Jurassic, or I guess both of the Jurassic World short film interstitial movies that came out between Fallen Kingdom in 2018 and Jurassic World Dominion earlier this week. One of them is a prologue to World, and you see some of that footage in the cold open newsreel of Dominion, which is pretty cool. You get more context as to what life on Earth looks like with dinosaurs. But the other short I want to shout out is called Battle at Big Rock. And this is a nice little 8-minute story of this family that are camping in the woods. They're hanging around this fire pit, having s'mores. And what waltzes through their campsite but a big old scary carnivore. And it's just, and I kind of just love seeing the other side of the coin. Instead of hanging out with our heroes and Alan Grant and Owen Grady, what is life like for the regular people that inhabit Earth with dinosaurs? This is the kind of stuff I wish we got more of in the movies proper. But we get this nice little 8-minute short that has a nice budget. It's directed by Colin Trevorrow. The effects look fantastic. And it's that really tense, okay, you're with your family and your kids in a tiny little camping trailer. And this, giant 30-foot dinosaur is chomping through your aluminum house and is going to eat everything you own, and then your kids and you. So it's a tense, nice little 8-minute short, and it's within the universe and continuity of Jurassic Park. So I think it's a fun little watch before you go out and see Dominion this weekend.
Yeah.
And that is available on YouTube.
Yeah, you can just watch that on YouTube. It's free. I think that's the other big thing. Is why not? You're already on YouTube, probably. So just go check it out.
Yeah, there's that one, and then there's the one that actually takes place in prehistoric times. It's just a montage of cool dinosaurs.
Yeah, that's part of the world, the Dominion prologue. It's called the prologue. It also involves the sequence where T-Rex is at the drive-in theater, which was heavily in the trailers, but not in the movie. That kind of just got kicked out. We're going to cut it out of the movie, but then release it on YouTube. So it's sort of a nice little short.
Yeah. Just because I can't leave this podcast without just one more slam on Jurassic World Dominion. How dumb is the end of that movie? Where it's different combinations, not to spoil everything, but where it's oh, and now this combination of this animal and this dinosaur, they're just living together, and
the harmony elements,
I don't
he's gone again.
I'm trying to remember specifically what harmonized element you didn't.
Let's just say that there's horses running through the plain.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
There's several. There's 4 or 5 shots in a row of ridiculous combinations of.
Yeah. Oh, right. I remember now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got by that point. I was
the humpback whale, and
that was the most ridiculous. The underwater one was so silly.
He would eat the whale. The whale would be eaten.
Yes.
We've already established he can swallow buses whole.
And by the way, the Mosasaur is 1/8 the size of how he is in the movie, which is funny.
Of course he is.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. Anyhow, that is Battle at Big Rock on YouTube, Circle Season 4 on Netflix, and Prehistoric Planet on Apple TV Plus. We did it, guys. We managed the podcast. Didn't have to mine any DNA from anywhere to do it. We made it happen. Thank you so much.
We had a very dino-focused show today.
We did. Thank you so much for joining us today for Sif Pop. It is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out again today.
Oh, thank you, buddy.
Huge thanks to producer Phil for producing the audio and video show.
Thanks, Phil.
And a big holla to John Paula for hanging out with us today. Woo! Where do you want to send people to find your stuff?
Pop over to my Letterboxd. If you wanted to hear more of my rants and complaints about Dominion, I wrote up 1,300 words yesterday. I couldn't help myself. It was one of those things that's just so easy to write sometimes when you just have so many thoughts and the keyboard is just an extension of your head. Check that out. I'm rating and reviewing stuff all the time on Letterboxd. And just had a pretty good rewatch with all those Jurassic movies, and some hold up better than others.
That is Letterboxd, Letterboxd, no E at the end there, .com/John Paula.
Yeah.
So also big thank you to our Sif Pop members. Support starts at $3 a month. You get access to all the bonus episodes, ad-free podcasts, all sorts of fun stuff at the different levels. You can check that out, patreon.com/SiftPop. You can also connect with us in several different ways. Feel free to leave a comment, a rating, or a review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. If you'd like to send us an email, you can do that too. Feedback@siftpop.com. And finally, most importantly, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like the show too. So make sure you pass it on to them and let them know that listening is much easier than participating in a lethal piggyback ride. We will be back next week with Lightyear. A little bit of Pixar on the schedule for this next week. So we will see you then. Bye.
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 Thanks for the chat, guys. Lolly, great to see you in the chat. Thugbeats says, watch another blockbuster Indian movie called KGF Chapter 2. It looks like it made about 10.5 billion rupees in.
That is on my list. That and Bahubali 1 and 2. I've heard great things about those.
Jeffrey Miller said, is it really that bad? Just got here, was planning to see, but changed my mind. This was during RRR, so I was
I think he started the show, so we were talking about Jurassic.
Oh, that's
I think
right.
he watched
Some
it on tape delay.
Some people will be watching on delay. That is correct. So, yes, it is. It is that bad.
Yes,
it is that bad, but there are sequences that are pretty cool.
Yeah. Love this. By first says RRR equals we fought a zoo. So sometimes the jokes, man, the jokes.
That sequence was just absolutely. That was so fun. Where they sort of slide the car to a stop, and then all the animals run out in the same.
Oh, it reminded me of Avengers: Age of Ultron. You know, whenever
it was kind of a bit, but with tigers and lions and CGI, whatever.
So many splash pages. Thanks, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate having you here on the live show. We're gonna go. It's been a long one today, so we're gonna head out. Love you all. Appreciate you. We'll catch you on the